there could be a benefit from soil compaction and yields at the end of the year.
Hello, and welcome to this edition of the State of Soy. I'm Michaela Jordan. As the spring weather starts to warm up and planters get ready to roll, we're out on the farm today with Scott Sloan, Global Ag and LSW Product Manager, looking at the importance of tires when it comes to field work and machine maintenance. Scott, let's start by talking about what impact tires have on field work.
You know, your tires are extremely important. You think about it, you have the biggest tractor, the biggest grain cart, the biggest everything on the farm, but if you don't have the right tires, or tires in general, that piece of equipment's not going to go anywhere. It's springtime now and everybody's getting geared up and getting ready to get out into the field, and they're out working on planters, they're working on their tractors, changing fluids, doing all the stuff that everybody does this time of year, right? But the one thing I'd probably say 50 to 60% don't do is check inflation pressures. And the tires would actually hits the field. The tractor doesn't, it's the tire. So if you can get those inflation pressures set just right, there could be a benefit from soil compaction and yields at the end of the year.
As farmers are preparing to get their tractors and planters in the field, how can they ensure that they have the correct tire pressure?
That again, that's the big thing. And what Titan Goodyear, maker Goodyear farm tires, what we offer is it's called Ag Specialist. I've got guys that are in pickup trucks every day making farmer visits to growers, just like we're standing out here in Boone, Iowa, and setting up those inflation pressures. Do you know what your axle load is? How much load is actually on that tire? Our guys actually carry scales around and are able to come up onto the farm site, look at the piece of equipment, make recommendations on front to back ballasting. But the big thing is they can roll these tractors up onto the scale, get the actual load, and then it's just a matter of looking it up on a load table, and you got your inflation pressures. And honestly, Titan is actually the only one that has that crew that are out there running. So we're pretty proud of that, and we'll make about 1,200 farmer visits a year.
Looking at the appearance of the tire, when farmers are looking at tread or possible cracks or the age of the tire, what should they be aware of before they're pulling their equipment out of the shed?
Well, it's always good to kind of take a little walk around. You never know, you might snag a fence post that you didn't know. It's just a daily routine just to kind of look around. But typically, if you start seeing some abnormal wear, maybe a stress crack starting to look where the rubber looks a little like it's been folded back and forth like a coat hanger. Those are the signs you want to maybe get a little information, figure out what your axle load is, and then what the inflation pressure should be, so you can get those inflation pressures set where they're supposed to be, as opposed to you just inflate it because it looked good. I hear people say, oh, I put it till I've got 3 lugs on the ground. Well, a lot of different tire companies have a lot different number of lugs on the side of tires, so a 3 for us might be a lot smaller area than 3 for another tire company.
When it comes to return on investment, how can farmers ensure that their tires are lasting year over year and they're getting a return on the investment they're paying for their tires?
Well, it's a great question. Tires aren't cheap. There's a lot of technology in it. It's expensive. So finding first of all, the right size of tire for your tractor. You don't want too big of a tire because you're pulling the horsepower down, you'll be using more fuel, slower ground speeds. Too small of a tire, you're not going to get the tractive efficiency and the pulling power. So there's just a lot of things, and all that stuff kind of adds up over the course of a season. And if you can take a little bit out of each one of those, it doesn't take long to get that ROI back on a tire investment.
As farmers may be preparing for that investment, if they decide to purchase a new pair of tires, what should they consider when making that decision?
The machine we have behind here, they went from duals to super singles, and that's kind of what Titan Goodyear, we make the LSW tire. Our concept is, instead of straddling the rows in the springs, we are actually driving over it and spraying that load over the surface of the row and between the rows. And we've done numerous studies where you see a plus up or a bump up in yield when you go to a super single setup.
As spring approaches, there's a lot to consider when it comes to your tires. Whether you need a new set, there's maintenance that needs to be done, and if your tire pressure is correct. Scott, thank you for all you and Titan Tire do to ensure our farmers are rolling throughout the spring and the fall. Reporting for this edition of the State of Soy, I'm Michaela Jordan.
Do you remember when you first believed that anything was possible? Do you remember when you had doubt? Obstacles you couldn't overcome? Do you remember when you pushed through the pain and refused to quit? Remember, He created you for this.